We have information on the back table about who we are and an opportunity to just experience that right here and now. My name is Reverend Marcia MacLean. I'm the spiritual director of this center, and that's my husband Rick. We are co-founders. And we just celebrated a 1-year birthday. So a couple things to update you in this moment is that there was this awesome party, and we are going to use our spotlight after my talk and that song that comes after it to just share a little bit more about this extraordinary party and this wonderful group of people. And the afterglow is just, let me tell you, beautiful. So, thank you, and more to come. We're doing something, and I think I'm going to ask Rick, would you make sure the door is as closed as it can be? We're doing something from September all the way through the end of December called the Season for Interfaith and Intercultural Celebration. And that is in collaboration with something called the Association for Global New Thought, AGNT. And our dear friend, Dr. Michael Beckwith, is the president of that whole movement, and lots of other familiar faces. So what we're doing today is a continuation of this thing that we began in September, looking at different paths to God, and honoring those paths and increasing our understanding of them for the sake of recognizing a greater level of harmony and unity, which possibly is what we were created to experience to begin with. So, how about that? So today, what we're exploring is Islam. And the reason that I chose this day to do this exploration is because there's something, it's an annual pilgrimage, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, that takes place between now and next Friday, called Hajj. It is a pilgrimage to Mecca. And it's an extraordinary sight. People who've been interviewed about managing this say that it's like having 7 Super Bowls at one time. Quite a lot of logistic activity going on. And of course, the mere mention of anything, be it this or something else, can never do justice to it, can never be enough to create true understanding. And yet, to honor something does not require that we understand it. Actually, to honor something has no prerequisite of understanding. Honoring is simply a choice. And how wonderful to make the choice to honor anyone or anything without putting the condition on it that first I must understand it or you fully. And then if I succeed in that understanding through the lens of my own experience and opinions and judgment and past and whatever, my culture, then maybe I'll decide that I honor you. How beautiful to say, you know what? I will begin by honoring you. A really wonderful thing happens in making that choice. We discover that understanding is not necessary. And we also create an opening for the desire to understand. So, having said that, I am going to offer a brief look. We are a Center for Spiritual Living, and we are one of 450 centers worldwide, most of them in this country and not all of them, teaching these basic principles, at the core of which is that it is done unto you as you believe, that your thought is creative. And it can be confirmed or affirmed just as much by ancient wisdom as by new science and personal experience and everything in between. So I begin by sharing with you a couple points about Islam so that then I can tell you what we would do with those core ideas. Islam means submission to the will of God. Muslim means one who submits. Submission to the will of God is the core principle in the Muslims and the Muslims' highest calling. Islam was consolidated and not founded by the Prophet Muhammad, who brought this idea of one God to the Arab nation. It is claimed by this group that first there was Moses, then there was Jesus, then there was Muhammad, and that the three of them complete some prophetic messages or revelations or deliveries. And so it is suggested then that the Quran actually incorporates the truths within each. And I use words like it's suggested and it is supposed and so on because I don't know. I don't know. I have this beautiful book that I had in my ministerial training, and it used to be called, are you ready? The Idiot's Guide to World Religions. And my former co-minister at another center and colleague and classmate, she made labels for all of us because she really believes in positive languaging. So I have this sticker on there that says, Marcia's pretty good guy, instead. The 5 pillars of Islam, roughly translated in English, are a declaration of faith, prayer 5 times a day, charity or almsgiving, fasting for the month of Ramadan, which, by the way, doesn't include in the darkness of night. It's just during the daytime, so you don't actually not eat for a month. And a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is called Hajj. And that's why Rick's been showing these various pictures of that event. It is something that is suggested that each able-bodied Muslim do at least one time in his or her life. And if you're unable to do it, you can sponsor someone else to go in your name. So, having said that, I have a little bit more information here. The Sunni sect represents about 90% of those, and the Shiites represent about 10%. The difference between them, again, this is just very, very peripheral information here, is that the Sunnis primarily focus on the teaching itself and the practices therein. And there is an emphasis among the Shiites on clerical leadership, a much stronger emphasis there. Then there are those pesky mystics. Here's where we come in. The mystics are the Sufis in this particular path. And the mystics of any religion or tradition are the ones who have their own experiences of oneness with the Creator, with God. And, there's this little comic, one of those single picture comics I saw one time. And there were 2 people all dressed in white. And one was up in a tree, and that person's jacket fastened in the back. And there was one sitting peacefully in meditative repose underneath the tree also. And the caption just read, one of these 2 knows who not to tell. And the difference was between the master and the one is somehow persecuted. So the Sufis are an example of the mystical element of a teaching, in this case of Islam. The ones who claim oneness with God and court an experience of that. In this case, through their amazing dances. And I'm sure a great deal more. There's so much wisdom, poetry, and beautiful teaching that comes out of this part of the movement. Now, if you were to proclaim your oneness with God in the 7th century, your life would end very soon and most likely with pain. Public pain. Today, 14 centuries later, in the 21st century, when you exclaim something like that, there may be a few people in your family who aren't sure what to say on the phone. Maybe they call a little less, What's happened to you? There may be even some people who decide to, take the other sidewalk when they encounter you on the street. Here, anyway, if you share that you are having a spiritual experience, you're more likely to get at least support, if not more than that. Now, I know that this isn't physically true everywhere around the world, But humanity has awakened to the point where we know this as truth among many of us, and that cannot be stopped. So, here are a few excerpts from what we believe. There's a list of these 12 statements of what this teaching is about. On the back table, it's yellow, I think it says, "We believe" at the head of every sentence. Here are a few that relate to what the Sufi mystics and all mystics claim as well. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. And we believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the divine. Have you ever been encouraged to remain in close contact with the divine? I know that I have. Okay, so there's all that sort of, serious stuff. These big commitments, declarations, suggestions, tenets, pillars. And yet, it's really not so big, after all. Because remember, I was saying that the willingness to choose to honor, even before or regardless of understanding, opens a door. And what happens after that is that now that I have laid aside my preconceived notions, I've opened up my mind too. I've opened up my heart. I've opened up a door of curiosity and a desire to know what we have in common. Thomas Troward, one of the inspirations to our founder back in the turn of the century of this teaching, says, I'm not sure how I want to put this morning, but he says that Spirit, Creator, the Absolute, is forever seeking new ways to experience the joy of living. He also says that Spirit's highest order is harmony, and that the first order of all creation, everyone and everything, is unity. And I have a feeling that when we decide to honor and then choose to begin to understand, what we discover when we look at someone or something that we don't know a whole lot about is that we have a lot in common. We discover those areas where we can have harmony, where we can harmonize with people. You can do this with people who vote differently on election days. Discover that you both really appreciate fresh, local, organic produce, perhaps. Or maybe you like horseback riding or golf, or you like to play cards or read books written by a certain author. Unity. What happens when you discover something within someone or something that you didn't know about before that harmonizes you? You recognize that you're more alike than you thought. And so the sense of being one creeps in. Brotherhood, sisterhood, familiarity, literally, that we are family. Unity. This would be a really good talk to give on Capitol Hill. I'm giving it here instead. Okay. So if you want to go onto our website and click on Sunday videos and then the little share thing that looks like an extension cord or a splitter up in the corner, and forward it to someone who may be of influence. We really all are. Behind all the differences, we always have things in common, because that's how we were made. So there's this idea then, if we go back to this idea of, okay, deep breath, what does it mean to submit to the will of God? Well, that has been very much misunderstood, and people have been persecuted and killed for those misunderstandings. But we're still here, Okay? We're still here. And that truth is still here too. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, we are in a time, we are in a place in our experience, we are definitely in a place on the planet where we have the freedom to choose by what name we call that power, whether we assign gender to it or not, whether it is the absolute, the I am principle, the creator, Father, Mother, God, Father, Mother, Goddess. It doesn't matter. I have a feeling it doesn't matter to that which is all. And we say it doesn't matter to us, because what matters is what's behind it, which is that harmony and that unity, that relationship, that communion, that oneness, that indwelling presence. So we have that, which means that this thing that we say that we're submitting to is different than the old idea that divided us within and without. Submission. If you just look up the word to submit and get away from the weighty biblical, spiritual textbooks of different religions and all of the fire and brimstone, and just look at the concept of submitting. Think of things like, I submit to you. Oh, that means I'm going to share an idea with you. I have a proposition. What if it also means that I am going to accept, invite, open to, agree to? There are a lot of different interpretations, and sometimes when you go through the dictionary, you will see the influence, unless you go to the Oxford English Dictionary, which is much more broad. You will see the influence right there. You look up Merriam-Webster, and you look up some of the others, and you will see the influence of this interpretation, which sometimes leaves room for a few others. So what if I were just to open to, share with, agree to, connect with the will of that which created all life? That doesn't sound so bad. There's something that we talk about a lot in spirituality and psychology, which is the ego. And in this teaching, the science of mind and spirit, if you look in the back of the textbook, Ernest Holmes has a wonderful definition in the glossary of ego. In a nutshell, there is the capital E, ego, which is just like your appendix. It's something that spirit made that has a purpose even if you don't understand it. Okay? It's there for a reason. It was created to protect the biological form. It is created to warn of and prepare to respond to danger, right? And somewhere along the line, and this is not what was in the glossary, by the way, somewhere along the line, the perception of what is dangerous shifted. And suddenly, if you look at me funny, I'm like, oh, danger, strike, you know. The ego just kind of got a little too big for its britches. But it's not to be banished or eliminated, surgically removed or locked up. It is simply to be reminded of its true purpose, because the healthy ego is a team player in a bigger game. Okay? So this idea of submission to the will of God is only a problem for that lone soldier ego that has gotten separate from the wisdom, the love, the truth that everything you could ever want or imagine already handled, already given, already taken care of. Versus, I'll do it myself, get out of my way. You're either friend or foe, I've got to decide right now and get on with my business. So, when you consider this idea of where this resistance might come from as far as submission goes, remember, you've already considered redefining what God is, redefining what submission is. Now we can look at where the resistance might come from and say, well, let's redefine ego. Because don't we all, and now I know your chiropractors who are into looking at the whole being will agree with this. When we are mentally and emotionally in alignment with ourselves and the truth of all that is, we stand straight and tall. We are both strong and flexible. Our lives work beautifully. We experience that harmony. We recognize that unity. We're not bent. And we're not all bent out of shape in any way. So actually the prospect of surrendering to the will of God is a pretty cool one. It just requires that we re-examine what each of those components mean. That's all. Now, there's this other little piece I wanted to share with you. Because we honor all paths. We could say that we either ate the wrong apple, checked out the wrong tree, got kicked out, ran away, what else? Got lost, forgot, maybe our leaving this so-called Garden of Eden was our first offense, whatever, maybe we just had a misunderstanding. It doesn't really matter how we got out of total knowingness and alignment with our oneness with all that is. The point is that we are remembering it. We are remembering it in greater numbers, with greater frequency in our own lives, and we're getting great results because of it. So we're awakening. And like I said earlier, that can't be stopped. One of the key components, in fact the first one of 3, of the missions for Centers for Spiritual Living is that we are to awaken to our spiritual magnificence. So we dedicate ourselves to awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. And you know, this isn't just so we can say, gosh, aren't we great? You know, aren't we great? No, it's more than that. That magnificence is the presence and the power of love within each and every one of us. It was planted there before birth. It can never die. It will never be lessened nor added to. It requires nothing. It is already perfect. We have spent thousands of years denying our magnificence. We have spent thousands of years rejecting our divinity. We have learned to be afraid of it, ashamed of it, to hide it, to deny it, to try to cut it out, to try to stop it from happening. People get in trouble for having a spiritual experience. Get back to work. Don't say that. We're in a different place now. And we've had this beautiful experience of, for whatever reason, being disconnected from that, and yet we never really could be. If you're a student of A Course in Miracles, you know it's really not possible. We just believed it, and so we had the experiences that went along with those beliefs. What we can do now is recognize that we already are one with the will of our Creator. Think about that. How hard can it be then to submit to the will of our Creator? It's just a letting go. It's just a letting go. We joke about leaving claw marks and having white knuckles and so on. We make letting go hard. It just takes an instant and it goes like this. That's it. What happens is, if we are willing to let letting go be easy, the rest is handled because we're already one with that which created us. We already have that guiding force, that higher self, that Holy Spirit within. We already have that knowing, that loving, that perfect life, that energy within us. There's nothing to go get. There's nothing to find and then build a wall around and protect and defend. There is no limit to it, so we don't have to meet it out very carefully. It's already here. It's within each and every one of us. It's unlimited, and it produces a life so far beyond all of our wildest dreams put together and requires zero effort. Because one aspect of it is the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, the law of correspondence, which responds according to our belief and gives us an amazing life. So in the end, this commitment to submit to the will of God, it's not so bad. As a matter of fact, it just might be great. Can you imagine all of the energy, the mental and emotional and physical energy, all the time and money that you would recover that you have spent trying to do life all by yourself? All of the direction, all of the effort, all of the supplies, all of the help. This is not submitting to something outside of us. It's within and all around. It always has been, and it always will be. So I invite you to take that into your hearts today and jump in. Come on in. The water is fine. And so it is.